Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, we knew it was coming. In fact, we kind of talked about it on the show already. And over the weekend, the violence, the out of control crime spree, there's just no other way to describe it. The carjackings, the murders, the beatings, the roving bands, the roving mobs of 14, 15, 16-year-old teenagers who are just like out of a Hollywood movie, attacking people for no reason, shooting places up, plundering, looting stores. Finally, the president said, enough is enough. This is the nation's capital. This is the seat of American government. This should be a place of safety, of beauty, of order, a place where people from all over the country and the world come to visit. And instead, it has now become a third world hellscape. No more. The Democrat City Council of Washington has failed. The D.C. City Council is a joke. The mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, is a joke. And now the federal government is taking over. So Trump yesterday declared a public emergency, to the shock and horror of the media, to the shock and horror of the Democrats, in which he now said that the Washington Metropolitan Police Department would now come under the full control of the federal government, with Attorney General Pam Bondi having ultimate control, ultimate authority. So now the D.C. police must answer to the DOJ and to Pam Bondi in particular. But it's not just now that the police are going to be forced to make arrests and execute search warrants to clean up the streets. Trump also announced a massive surge of National Guard troops. 800 troops are now going to be infused onto the streets of D.C., in particular in the most dangerous neighborhoods. And not only that, so you're going to have troops on the ground. You're going to have the D.C. police now making arrests. Also, homeless encampments are now finally going to be eliminated. They're going to be pushed out of the city. The sight of drug addicts, zombies, people urinating, defecating on the sidewalk, tent cities everywhere is over. Washington is going to look like a proper capital again. Listen now to President Trump saying, I've heard enough. I've seen enough. We are now going to take action. And so, under the Home Rule Act, the D.C. Home Rule Act, the president invoked his legal, legitimate authority to take the police department under his control and to also order the National Guard to be deployed to the streets. Now there's going to be a real war on crime, and Trump is vowing a decisive, quick victory. Roll cut one, Mike.
We're here for a very serious purpose, Something's out of control, but we're going to put it in control very quickly like we did on the southern border. I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control. Amen. And you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that.
Amen. Amen. I'm telling you, amen. Amen. Honestly, what took you so long? And look, and really the final straw was the savage beating of Edward Corestine, a.k.a. Big Balls, a former Doge staffer, a 19-year-old young man who was beaten savagely, senselessly, almost an inch within his life as he tried to protect his girlfriend from, 10 or 12 roving teenage thugs. Okay, again, a band of thugs who just wanted to carjack her car and potentially could have raped her and assaulted her. And so he went to her rescue. He shoved her into the car, made sure that she was safe, and then they beat him black and blue. And that's what happened with Big Balls. And Trump said and looked at this and said, how the hell? This was 2 miles, by the way, 2 miles from the White House. Literally 2 miles from the White House. And Trump said, listen, this can't happen. This cannot go on much longer. You had a congressional intern, 21 years old, just a couple of weeks ago, in the evening, after finishing his work on Capitol Hill, shot dead. The victim of crossfire from gang warfare. You had over the weekend, this weekend, over 100 thugs, 100 criminal thugs go onto the streets. There was some kind of a turf war in which there was machine gun fire, gunfire, bedlam, where spray bullets everywhere. People had to be sent to the hospital. People ended up dead. And by the way, most of the victims are African Americans. That this is something the media deliberately continues to omit and leave out. The majority of the victims of this out-of-control crime in D.C. are African Americans. And in the African American communities, in the black neighborhoods in D.C., this move by Trump is incredibly popular. Children as young as 3 are being murdered or killed in the crossfire of gang warfare. They cannot walk the streets at night. Their neighborhoods are terrorized. They're infected with drugs, homelessness, needles on the ground, you name it, drug dealing, extortion. It goes on. The pharmacies in D.C., good luck finding one now because all they do is loot them. You see videos now, they just come in like a pack of animals, 10, 15, 20 of them, and they just clean the place out. Pharmacy after pharmacy after pharmacy. It's getting to the point now that you can't even have a business in Washington, D.C. And this is the nation's capital? As Trump, eloquently put it yesterday, we have people coming from Indiana and Iowa, people coming from as far away as Utah and Washington State, Maine, Florida. They're here to see the monuments. They're here to see the White House. They're here to see the Capitol Hill. And they're fearful of getting shot dead at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in broad daylight. The most heartbreaking part of yesterday's presentation, at least for me, you may disagree. I'm just giving you my honest feedback on this. He showed a chart comparing the per capita murder rate, the crime rate of Washington, D.C., our capital, to capitals around the world. And I'm not talking about Berlin or Paris or London or Stockholm or Ottawa or what. No. Baghdad, Lima, Peru, Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City. And if you looked at the charts, Baghdad is twice as safe as Washington, D.C. Baghdad. Bogota, Colombia, where all basically their national export is cocaine, where the country is run by drug warlords. Colombia, Bogota is safer than Washington, D.C. Mexico City, run by the drug cartels with rampant violence and blackmail and kidnapping and extortion, is safer than Washington, D.C. And then you hear this idiot, Hillary Clinton, and she's the one that started this on social media. And all these leftists and liberals, they just start mindlessly regurgitating what she said. She goes on about, how dare Trump do this? Crime rate is at a 30-year low in Washington, D.C. This is a power grab. He's a dictator. He just wants to put the troops on the streets. A 30-year low from an unacceptable high. There were nearly 200 murders in Washington, D.C. in 2024. That's the last available statistics that we have. Now, is it lower than the 400 murders the year before? Yes. But so what? It's still 200 murders. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, audience is on fire. I mean, we're barely 20 minutes into the show, and the audience is already clicking on all cylinders. This is from Marianne in Florida, and as usual, dynamite. Jeff, do you want to know why the crime rate in D.C. is quote-unquote lower, or that it shows that it's lower? It's because they've stopped reporting on what was really going on. When they're not reporting on what's really happening, of course the crime rate gets lower. Bingo. You nailed it, Marianne. In fact, it's a huge scandal within the Washington Metropolitan Police Department. One of their top commanders just got fired for cooking the books. Literally for manipulating and distorting the statistics to make it seem that crime was much lower than it really is. And his defense, I swear to you, and this is coming straight from the mayor, that loser, incompetent mayor. Oh, no, he was just following orders from other people in the police department. In other words, he was just, no, don't blame him for falsifying the statistics and the data. No. He was doing it under orders from people above him. Well, I don't care whether he was doing it from people above him or not. The fact of the matter is, when they say that crime is at a 30-year low, they're lying. When they say that the homicide rate is low, they're lying. That the murder rate is low, they're lying. And even if you accept their premise, which I don't, but just for the sake of argument, okay? You know, a 30-year low from an unacceptable high is still unacceptable. So I really don't care. Like, it's the stupidest argument I've ever heard. So what? We're supposed to tolerate people getting beaten senseless, being shot dead on the street? Members, as Trump pointed out yesterday, ask members of Congress. And these were Democrats, not Republicans. Henry Cuellar, congressman from Texas, a Democrat, got carjacked. This was just a couple of years ago. He's lucky to be alive. You have other members of Congress who say, no, we've been mugged, we've been beaten, we've been assaulted. Staffers up on Capitol Hill, and I'm not just talking about big balls, or that poor intern that was shot dead. Many of them beaten, accosted, mugged in elevators. They're petrified to walk the streets. So the reality of crime that everyday people have to live with in Washington, in D.C., is very different than what the elite liberal media and people like Hillary Rotten Clinton are claiming. Again, go to the black neighborhoods and the black communities. This is overwhelmingly popular. Dave, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent, made a very good point. He messaged me saying, Jeff, the mayor of D.C. is a liberal, Mayor Muriel Bowser. And if you see a pattern, Jeff, everywhere liberals take power in cities, they run them into the ground. Chicago, New York, Boston, Atlanta, D.C., obviously, Los Angeles, San Francisco. It's city after city after city after city. Whenever the libs take over, look what happens. It starts to resemble a third world toilet. You know, as Trump famously called it, I can't say it, a third world crap hole. But if you want the checkmate argument, here it is. And this is what they can't refute this. That's why they have to keep going, it's a 30-year low. It's a 30-year low. It's a 30-year low. Right. Listen now to Trump. The murder rate. Now, this is, remember, the seat of American government. This is our capital city. People from all over the world come to our capital. Leaders, diplomats, statesmen, business people, tourists, you name it. This is our face to the world. To be honest, it should be our cleanest city, our safest city, our most beautiful city. Instead, listen to this. Roll cut 2, Mike.
The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth. Much higher. This is much higher. The number of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years, and the number of carjackings has more than tripled. Murders in 2023 reached the highest rate probably ever. They say 25 years, but they don't know what that means because it just goes back 25 years. Can't be worse. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it.
He's completely right. And the videos don't lie. The images don't lie. The constant reports don't lie. Listen now. This to me is just, this is a damning chart. Trump rolled out this chart and he said, I'm comparing us now, not to Berlin, not to Paris, not to London, not to Helsinki, not to Warsaw, but to Baghdad, Bogota, and Mexico City. Roll cut 2A, Mike.
When you say take a look at numbers, I just saw some charts. These are different cities throughout the world. Red is, okay, the red is a place called Washington, D.C. Look at these. Baghdad we doubled up on Baghdad. Panama City, Brasilia, San Jose, Costa Rica, Bogota, Colombia, heavy drugs. Mexico City, I mentioned, Lima, Peru, all double and triple what they are. So do you want to live in places like that?
In Bogota, Colombia, which exports cocaine, it's, just riddled with gang violence, okay, and these drug warlords. Average per capita murder rate in Bogota, 15. Okay, 15.4. In Washington, D.C., 27.2. Okay, let me ask all of you, really, to me, this is clearly the question of the hour. Do you support Trump's decision to federalize the Metropolitan Police Department of Washington, D.C.? It's now the police. It's about 3,000, almost 500 police officers. I had no idea they had that many police. That's an army. You know, as Trump rightly said yesterday, my God, 3,500 cops and you have this kind of crime? That's you could almost take over a country with 3,500, troops, in this case, law enforcement. So it's now they're all going to be under the control, ultimately, of Attorney General Pam Bondi. They're now going to be given orders to make arrests, to go after the gangbangers, to go after drugs, to go after carjackings, to throw the book at them. On top of that, Trump is now ordering 800 National Guard troops. He's going to surge National Guard troops, boots on the ground in D.C. to supplement the local police. It is going to be an all-out war on crime. Trump says, give me a couple of weeks, and you will see a dramatically different city. Do you support Trump's decision? And would you like for him to do it to other cities as well? Because I'm going to get to this a little bit later. He's now saying, when I'm done with D.C., I'm not stopping at D.C. He singled out New York, Chicago, and L.A., and frankly, I would put Boston and Atlanta on that list as well. There's other cities I'd say, you know what, please come to my neighborhood. Come to my city. Yeah, we need you here too. So, do you support what Trump is doing? And do you want to see something like this happen to, say, Boston or whatever city you're near to? Other big cities like New York or Chicago or L.A.? And what do you make of the argument that Trump is behaving like a dictator, that this is a power grab, and that now he is putting his soldiers on the streets in order to cement his and consolidate, I swear to you, this is the argument they're making, his dictatorship. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me just read one more text, and I want to go to the phone lines. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470. Jeff, if the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, can clean up this very same problem from the entire country of El Salvador and take it from the most dangerous country in the world to now one of the safest in just a few years by taking a hard hand against crime and gang violence, then President Trump can do the same thing and get the same result with just one city in a matter of weeks. Then let it serve as an example to all other violent cities in America as to just how quickly and effectively it can be done. And don't forget just how hard it is to obtain a concealed carry permit to protect yourself with a legal firearm in D.C. It's next to impossible. That's a great point. It's bad enough that you have this out-of-control crime and these roving bands and mobs of thugs and gangbangers. But good luck getting a conceal and carry license. Good luck getting, having the ability to have a gun to protect yourself and your family. No, that's why the left is freaking out. Because they've been electing soft on crime district attorneys, all of it funded by George Soros, from Boston to New York to Chicago to Seattle to San Francisco to L.A. And it's led to a massive crime epidemic. And if Trump can clean up Washington, D.C. in 2 to 3 weeks, it's going to show the entire country, oh my God, we've been suffering like this and living under siege because of bad policy. And all it takes is some will and some action and some determination and guts. And we don't have to live in a killing zone ourselves. It will be a damning indictment of Democrat mayors and blue cities all across the country. And that's why they're going apoplectic. Because, again, they see their grip on power slipping away. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. John in Lowell. You're going to kick us off, John. Thanks for holding and welcome.
A new name, tinfoil. Put your hat on, Jeff. This isn't just to stop crime. Think about it. He started this with Los Angeles as a testing ground, okay? Yeah, they went off on it a little bit, but then it quieted down. Now it's Washington. He's talking about Chicago. He's talking about other Democrat cities. Jeff, he's prepping the field. He's putting the pawns in place So when there's mass arrest and these morons go off, he can shut them down.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying that if they start to revolt, if you start to see them, take it to the streets to try to stop Trump or block Trump's agenda, he's going to have all the pieces in place for mass arrests. And basically he's countering Antifa and Black Lives Matter before they even have a chance to mobilize. Correct?
The mass arrests are going to be of the politicians.
Oh, and the so you think we are going to see mass arrests of politicians and deep state criminals, John?
And then he's got the pieces in place for when they try to go off.
I hope you're right. I really, really hope you're right. I hope Trump really is playing 3D chess this time, because I agree with you. Look, if you start making arrests of, powerful people like Obama or Biden or Hillary or Clapper or Brennan or Comey, we know what the Democrats, look what they're threatening now over 5 seats in Texas, redistricting. If they're going crazy over 5 seats now, what are they going to do when people actually start going to jail? So you're right. They could be ready to arrest the politicians, and these troops could be ready then to handle with the backlash. And to me, we have to get ready for the inevitable. I don't believe the left wants Trump to finish his entire term. They are petrified that he will complete his second term, because every day they're losing power. Every day they're getting weaker. He's beating them to the punch every day. And you could tell they're on the verge of revolt. So, John, I really hope you're right. To me, but it's even beyond that. To me, it's the principle of the matter. You cannot have our capital city be overrun by roaming gangs of thugs and gangbangers, really 14, 15, 16-year-old kids, punks, who are going around terrorizing people, shooting people, maiming people, and some of them, they are stoned. They're like insane zombies, and they're just walking the streets. Many of them naked. I'm not kidding, exposing themselves, and then just randomly attacking people, terrorizing people. You can't have that in any city, but certainly not in the nation's capital. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends, when I say the left is going berserk, I mean they are losing their minds over Trump's decision to federalize the Metropolitan Police Department, put it under federal control, and to deploy about 800 National Guard troops to crack down on crime. They are now saying, I kid you not, this is the beginning. Here it is now. This is the beginning of the Trump dictatorship. It's come. Here it is now. This is the Reichstag fire, according to them. So you have Chuck Schumer's former policy aide. I want you to listen to this. This clown, Chuck Schumer's former policy aide, yesterday went on Fox, and here is exactly what he said: that anyone who lives in Washington, D.C. or works in Washington, D.C. who doesn't feel safe should, quote unquote, leave their fears someplace else. If people are afraid to come to D.C., go to Disney World, get fat, eat French fries. I have lived here for 37 years. I am not afraid. I live in the city. I'm not afraid. Yeah, because you've got security. That's why you're not afraid. He's the head of some think tank now, in some pro-Democrat think tank in Washington, D.C. Oh, I guarantee you live in a gated community and you've got security. So, yeah, sure, if I lived in a gated community and I had security, I wouldn't be afraid either. But most people don't have that luxury. Hey, you phony, you fraud, you. 617-266-6868. 6868. Kim in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Kim, and welcome.
My husband, well, we've been down to D.C. a number of times over the years, and we were just down there in March for the mall, all the Smithsonian stuff, and I was surprised the Holocaust Museum actually had Secret Service for part of their security. And it actually seemed like we had been there when they first opened, and they had a gazillion artifacts, like real stuff. Now a lot of it's all like reproduction stuff, not the actual stuff. Which, but what's all? I mean, I know it's not murder and stuff, but have you ever been down there to down to the Smithsonian area?
Well, I worked in Washington, D.C. for over a decade. This was from about 2000 almost to 2012, and then I decided to come up here to Boston. So I know that area extremely well. We still have a home there, a townhome that we use as a rental property, and we're going to hopefully pay it down, and that's going to be the college nest egg for our children. We're going to sell the home, and hopefully it'll pay most, if not all, of Ashton and Ava's tuition. At least that's our financial plan. So we have a property down there. We visit occasionally. We still have a lot of friends. I know that area extremely well, Kim. And look, I can tell you they're lying. I know they're lying. I used to go to downtown DC almost every day. You know, they're saying this is a 30-year low. That's a lie. I was there during the Bush presidency, both terms. I was there during most of Obama's first term. You go to Union Station. When I went, there were no homeless encampments. It was safe. You get out of Union Station, you could go straight up to Capitol Hill. It's about a 10-minute walk. Now you get mugged. Now you're lucky if you don't get shot. Forget parking your car anywhere near that area, it gets carjacked. And I'm not talking about all the homeless tents and the drug addicts and the shooting up on the street and people defecating and people urinating and constantly being accosted. And again, people being punched, assaulted, mugged. It's right there. It's been well documented. So when they say this is a 30-year low, I know they're lying. People that I know that live in the city, when I left in 2012, they stayed. And they said it's never been worse. They go the last couple of years of Biden and now into this year. They go the homicide murder rate is out of control. And the scariest thing is, and this you did not see in D.C. when I was there, 15 years ago. You didn't see this. Roving bands of thugs. As Jeanine Pirro put it, they're young punks. They're 15, 16, 17, and they're like a mob, a flash mob. There's 10, 12, 15 of them. And they just literally, they roam the streets. They own the streets. And they'll attack anyone at will. They'll rob a store at will. They'll carjack at will. They'll shoot at will. They'll, maim, assault at will. And that's what happened to Big Balls. He had finished a date with his girlfriend. He was going towards his car. She was going towards her car. And there was about 10 or 12 of these thugs, 15, 16 years old, with the gold chains and the whole, the pants down to to their butt cracks. And then suddenly they just turned and said, no, we're going to go carjack this young woman's car and maybe rape her or beat her or assault her. And it's like a wildfire that just changes direction. And they started to head towards her. They just randomly picked her. And so he rushed across the street to protect his girlfriend. He knew if they went into the car, they'd smash the car, pull them both out, and either probably assault or kill them. So he pushed his girlfriend into the car, told her to lock the door, and then tried to protect her as they beat him and beat him and beat him and beat him and beat him. Now, he'd be dead today. He'd be dead. if it wasn't for somebody across the street in an apartment, wherever, a bystander, a witness, who called 911. The police came. The moment the police came, all of these thugs, like a bunch of, vultures, like jackals, they just ran away. They fled. But you can see the pictures of Edward Corestine. He's a 19-year-old kid. His face is completely smashed in. His nose is broken. He's got 2 black eyes. He's on the ground. They beat him to an inch within his life. Everybody says a couple more minutes, this is a dead kid. Literally for nothing. For nothing. So this did not happen in Washington, D.C. when I was there 10, 15, 20 years ago. I'm not saying there weren't murders. There were. I'm not saying there weren't carjackings. There were. But these roving bands of just, gangs and thugs. And if they did commit these kinds of crimes, it was in the known bad areas of D.C. This is now 2 miles from the White House. This is where the tourists are. This is, the best places in D.C. So that means crime is all over the city. It's out of control. And just to wrap it up, I'm going to come right back to you, Kim. The police were told by the D.C. City Council, and these are all Marxist, communist, whack jobs. I mean, really, I'm talking about, think of a city council run by Zoran Mamdani, Michelle Wu, and AOC. You don't get crazier than these people. The police are told you can't make arrests. The police are told stand down. The police are told even when they spit in your face, literally, you do nothing. We're not in the arresting business. And if they do get arrested, say for shooting somebody in the face, they're tried as juveniles in which they're given rehabilitation and they're told to do yoga and arts and crafts. This is not an exaggeration. That's their punishment. I put punishment in air quotes. They're told, no, do arts and crafts and do some yoga. And after 6 months, you're rehabilitated and go back on the street. They laugh at the police. They laugh at authority. They laugh at law enforcement. Well, now they're not going to laugh. When word gets out, you know what? You carjack, you're going to jail. You assault someone, you're going to jail. You deal drugs, you're going to jail. And if you shoot, kill, or maim someone, you're going to go to jail for a long time. Trust me, Kim, you will see a change in weeks. Suddenly, it's going to be okay. You can walk downtown D.C. at 8, 9 o'clock at night. Suddenly, you can go out for a drink, meet your friends at a bar, or go out to a restaurant. But now, this is Bogota, Colombia. This is Mexico City. And as Trump asked everybody in the room, would you want to live in Mexico City? I wouldn't. Would you want to live in Bogota? I wouldn't. Would you want to live in Baghdad? I wouldn't. We have the murder rate now in our capital that is higher than any of these cities. Washington, D.C. is a third world hellhole. And that's all because of that crazy moonbat mayor and that crazy moonbat city council. Kim, final word to you.
Maybe they can get rid of those little fake monk guys that come up to you and that with those neat little bracelets, but that they do like a prayer with you, and then so they give you the bracelet, and then you go to walk away. Oh no, that costs money. Donation, like that's always gone on right down by the monument, and the American History Museum, and that little spot. You always get hit up by those little monk guys, like they're like in a sheet, Tibetan monks. But I've heard they're not real. They don't really operate like that.
No, it's a scam. No, you're right. No, it's a complete scam. and you're just being accosted. You're just being harassed. And look, people don't realize how much money these museums take in. And I don't mean this in a bad way, in a good way. Tourists come. Look, I'm telling you, Washington, D.C. has some of the finest museums in the world. You know, most people don't know that because people are afraid to go to D.C. But you go to Washington, D.C., I'm not saying in the country, in the world. I know foreigners have told me, Europeans have told me, yeah, we got great museums in Europe, but man, some of the museums you have here in Washington, D.C., that rivals anything we have. Now, as Trump said, this is for our country. These museums are here as a treasure. American History Museum, Smithsonian. You could go. I mean, I'm telling you, you want to study. We have one of the best dinosaur museums in Washington, D.C. Kids love it. It's a great learning experience. Science Museum. We have some of the finest science museums in the world in Washington, D.C. I've been to one. I've been to most of them. There's a spy museum. It's a little bit more on the side. It's not quite as prominent as the others. You want to learn about espionage. It's really fun. The kids are going to love it, but it's very educational. We have incredible art museums. We have one of the finest art museums in the world. And yet you talk to these directors of these museums and they go, no, attendance is way down. Well, why is attendance way down? Tourists aren't coming. Why aren't tourists coming? Because they're petrified. Because they don't want to get shot on the street, or they don't want to get mugged, or especially if they drive, they come in and they take everything. They take the hubcaps, they take the tires, they take the whole car. They just leave. You come back and you go that they took everything. They took the engine. All they left is the body of the car. They strip it down, or they just steal the whole thing. They just carjack it and off they go. I mean, who wants to, I don't know, but so people avoid Washington, D.C. And then if you do stay there, and what people do is you only go in the middle of the day. You avoid being out at night. And even in the middle of the day, they're always harassing you. They're accosting you. They're badgering you. They always want something. You're like, I don't need this. This is not enjoyable. Look, I'm telling you, Trump is right. He said, you go to Germany, you go to France, you go to Britain, you go to Italy. You think the Italian police allow you to accost tourists on the streets of Rome? As, tourists are taking pictures at the Colosseum or, whatever. You think you can just go there and spit in their face and steal their money and persecute them and mug them? Or not just do you get arrested, I mean, they with the baton, they beat the hell out of you. Like, no, man, you don't do that. I could go on and on. And, and Trump said, look, he runs down, he goes, we don't just have 3,500 police officers, which is an army. We've got the FBI. We've got the DEA. We've got the Department of Homeland Security. We've got Secret Service. We've got the U.S. Marshals. In other words, we've got agency after agency of federal law enforcement, and they're still getting away with all this? He says, but you go to any major European capital, and he calls them rough police. And he's right. They just have police, and they're rough. You're loitering in Berlin, especially near one of these nice sites or statues or monuments or museums, and you're accosting people of Berlin or tourists. You got to see how the Berlin police treat them. They give them one warning, and after that, they grab them. And if they got to rough them up, they rough them up. And they throw them in what we would call the paddy wagon. Out, get lost. We're the only ones because of that idiotic D.C. City Council. No, they have a right to be there. No, they have a right to harass you. No, they have a right to set up a homeless encampment wherever they want. Right in front of the museum, at Union Station, in front of the White House, right next to the Capitol. And they're all on drugs, or they're schizophrenic, they're mentally ill. So you have violently mentally ill people, many of them, on heroin or what God knows what they're on, meth, with their eyes bulging out of their skull. And you'll be attacked at any second. That's why people are they're terrified. They're literally terrified to walk the streets. Now, and Trump is looking around saying, this is unacceptable. And he's the dictator? It's disgusting. Honestly, Kim, it's disgusting. Kim, thank you very much for that call. Arthur in Chestnut Hill, thanks for holding, Arthur, and welcome.
Well, a nation that doesn't abide by its laws is a nation that doesn't exist and isn't going to exist. And this just didn't happen overnight. In the last 60 years, we've turned around and we've turned our cities over to people who have no right to be mayors and who turn around and they don't represent people. I've said to you many, many times on the air, and I've said this over and over again, and I say it to you because you have two children. You are not safe anywhere, period. Every day you look you see people and see the such tragedy of decent, wonderful people who are accosted by these thugs, and you're leaving out something when you're describing these flash mobs and these gangs. Okay, you saw a description of what they look like with that Cincinnati brawl and the violence that they put forth. They're all black. And what do we have? We have black mayors who don't want to prosecute these people. They've cooked the books, and they've allowed this to happen. And like you said, just like that mayor in Baltimore when they were rioting over Freddie Gray and destroying the city and looting Stephanie Rawlings. That's the first time I heard a mayor say to the police, stand down. They're only exercising their right to free speech. Well, these people in all these cities, they cook the books too. And you had a caller last week, a black gentleman who told the truth. But we leave out the black part when we describe all these thugs and flash mobs and the violence. And where does it come from? It's for people like my family and your family who came to America for the privilege to come to America. We appreciate America. These people don't appreciate America. They're despicable. There isn't a hell deep enough for what they've done to this country. And the mayors are just as bad as they are because that's who they represent. They don't represent the decent people of America anymore. Nobody represents them. And nothing's going to change in Washington in 2 or 3 weeks. So you arrest these people. Nothing happens to them anyway. That's why they continue to do it. Over and over again, they get away with crime after crime after crime. And how violent these crimes are. Where does it come from? And how have we allowed this? Well, I'll tell you how we've allowed it, because we took away the police departments and the police of this country the right to be policemen. If you turn around and way back when I came to America, before they had all these probable cause and all these rights that would help criminals, if a police officer saw something seemed suspicious, he could do something about it. But today he can't because he needs probable cause. Even though somebody may be doing, molesting or raping children or committing a crime, he can't do anything until he gets a warrant. He can't go in there and maybe save somebody. Because the police they show up after a crime. They don't prevent crime. They only,
No, you're completely right. Arthur, you're absolutely right. They have so tied the hands of the police that, and this was also Trump's point yesterday, that they've neutered the police. Okay, listen now to the mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser. She's a very left-wing Democrat. She, and along with the entire Democrat City Council, have run the District of Columbia into the ground. It is an unmitigated disaster. Well, she's not happy now that Trump is going to be sending in National Guard troops and that he is now putting the Metropolitan Police Department, her police department, under the control of the feds and in particular AG Pam Bondi. Listen now to Bowser saying, crime is at a 30-year low. What's the problem? Roll cut 17. A Mike.
I believe that the president's view of D.C. is shaped by his COVID era experience during his first term. And it is true that those were more challenging times related to some issues. It is also true that we experienced a crime spike post-COVID. But we worked quickly to put laws in place and tactics that got violent offenders off our streets and gave our police officers more tools, which is why we have seen a huge decrease in crime because of those efforts. We have been able to reverse that 2023 crime spike. This year, crime isn't just down from 2023, it's also down from 2019 before the pandemic, and we're at a 30-year violent crime low.
That's because you're cooking the books. Your police commander had to resign because they caught him literally falsifying statistics, making it seem that the murder rate was lower, the homicide rate, the burglary rate, the robbery rate, the carjacking rate, rapes, by the way, as well, that everything was much lower than it really is. That's number one. Number two, I don't care if it's lower from 2023. 2023, they were dropping like flies all over the streets. So who cares? Say there's 1,000 people dying. You go, well, now there's only 900 people dying. Yeah, that's 900 too many. What do I care? I mean, you're just playing games. But this is the real reason. This is the real reason. They now realize that their absolute incompetence, has been exposed. And so now they want to score cheap political points against Trump. Now it's wink, wink. It's the end of our dictatorship. It's the end of our democracy. Dictatorship is coming. It's the beginning. He's now dictator Trump. He's putting his troops on the streets. Roll cut 17A. Mike.
My message to residents is this. We know that access to our democracy is tenuous. That is why you have heard me and many, many Washingtonians before me advocate for full statehood for the District of Columbia. And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past that we're totally surprised.
You can't run yourself as a city. You're so incompetent. And by the way, what Trump did by federalizing the police, bringing in National Guard troops, she can say it's unprecedented till the cows come home. It has been done over and over again. It has been done multiple times. They did it, for example, against Marion Barry in the 1980s when he ran that city into the ground. So there's nothing that Trump is doing that hasn't been done before. And sometimes, literally, Congress had to take over and run D.C. through committees because that's how poorly governed it was. You can't self-govern yourselves as a city. But now you want to reward that with being a state? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. No. Over my dead body. Now, one more cut, and then I want to go to the phone lines. I want you to listen now to Congressman James Clyburn from South Carolina. Remember, he was the guy that rallied the Congressional Black Caucus and the minority voters in particular in South Carolina in the Dem primary to save Joe Biden's candidacy in 2020 and help him defeat Bernie Sanders and launched Biden towards the Democratic nomination. Now listen to the race card that's being played. This is not just a dictatorship. Oh no. This is now Jim Crow all over again. Roll cut 19, Mike.
As a student of history, as someone who is living this right now, draw a line for us between what we are watching happening in Washington, D.C. with the President of the United States and what we are watching unfold in South Carolina, in Missouri, in Texas.
You may recall at the Democratic Convention, I spoke one evening and I said that Project 2025 is Jim Crow 2.0. Now, Jim Crow 1.0 came out of a thesis written by a Confederate general, Martin Gary. If you look at Project 2025, look at that 1876 document, you will see why I said what I did at the Democratic Convention. Because whoever wrote Project 2025, they used those edicts out of 1876. I can tell you right now exactly what is going to happen in so many of these instances because it's all right there. If you look in the history books, you see it.
I mean, you want to talk about incitement. You want to talk about, yelling, screaming fire, shouting fire in a crowded theater. He's trying now to whip up fear in the black community. So now what? They're going to be drinking at separate water fountains? They're going to be going to segregated schools? What now? They're going to be denied the right to vote? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Is President Trump federalizing the police force in Washington, D.C., appropriate or overkill? A, appropriate. You know where I stand. I think it's hell yes, is it appropriate? Should have done it yesterday, but let that go. A, appropriate. B, overkill. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in National ER. You can also vote via X. Again, last night I was active on X. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report. KUHN is in National ER. John in the great state of Texas. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Greetings from Texas. I wanted to share with you a story, something that happened to me and my family while we were in D.C. In the year 2020, my son graduated from the Naval Academy. On that day, we went to D.C. and to do the tourist stuff, and we've decided to try ourselves a $20 hot dog. We've never had hot dogs that were $20. They just don't have them down here. We've got wonderful tacos, but we don't have great hot dogs. So it was my wife, son, daughter, mother-in-law, and myself. We all dropped some serious money at one of the hot dog stands that were parked near the Washington Monument. And we got about 100 feet away from that hot dog truck. And three, let's say, we're going to call them youths for political correctness. 3 youths walked up to us and brandished a Glock 19, and they asked for our hot dogs. I could not believe it. So everybody's looking at each other like, this can't be real. But these guys weren't messing around. So we gave them the hot dogs. They took the hot dogs and disappeared. And first thing I did was I called the police. I hit 911. The police showed up. They wouldn't even write a police report. They were looking at us. I mean, first thing out of their mouths is, where you all from? And as soon as I said Texas, they looked at each other like, yeah, okay, well, oh well. So they wrote no police report. They didn't take us seriously. And the crazy thing is as soon as we got back to our rental car, because we wanted to get the hell out of there, they ruined that day. You know, those thugs, they ruined the day for us. As soon as I got to the vehicle, I was getting a traffic ticket for parking about 6 inches past the little sign that's with an arrow that says no parking on this side of the sign.
Unbelievable.
And I told the officer what had just happened to us. And they said, well, that's not my problem. Welcome to D.C., buddy. And he handed me the ticket. So, yeah, and I've never been back to D.C. again, and I never will. I mean, it's got beautiful potential. The traffic is unbelievably bad downtown. And I just wanted to share with you another story. I mean, luckily none of us got injured. But, you know, I told my son, you know, hey, welcome to the United States Navy. You get to defend these people. And he's like, geez, Dad. But anyways, I just wanted to share that with you.
John, it's an incredible story. Listen, John, can I ask you something? And just unfiltered, unplugged, from the heart, if you had not given them those $20 hot dogs, just say for the sake of argument, you said, no, I'm not. Like, you can hold a gun all you want. I'm not giving you those hot dogs. Get lost. What would have happened to you and your family? What do you believe would have happened to you and your family?
Well, if it happened in Texas, I would have taken care of business myself, and I'd be okay. But I'm in some foreign area, and I'm going to tell you, these people had the look of hatred in their eyes. They had that redness, that glare, like they wanted those hot dogs. You know, and I kept telling my wife, I mean, yeah, we would have got hurt. I mean, even though there were people, they had nothing to lose. These were people that were just, it looks like that. You know, they've gotten away with things all their lives. That they were so brazen. It was like, we're untouchable. And they had this look in their eyes. Their eyes were red. I don't know, marijuana or something. Who knows? Because I know that's a big deal down there or up there. And, you know, like I said, they weren't messing around, man. And
John, they would have shot you. You may disagree with me, but I'm telling you, the whole time as you're telling me the story, I'm like, just please give him the hot dogs. Please give him the hot dogs. Why? Because if you don't give him the hot dogs, they're so crazy. They have such little regard for human life that they will shoot you, your wife, and your son, and your family dead over a lousy, you know, forgive my French, effing hot dogs. Like, they're psychopaths. There's no conscience. There's no morality. There's no regard for another human being. And, you know, look, I know, I can just tell by listening to you. I know you're a good, kind-hearted man. And if someone came up to you and said, sir, please, I'm hungry, I'm starving, really, you look at him and you go, no, really, they do look very hungry. You know, please, could I have a hot dog? I'm so hungry. You say, sure, my God, my heart goes out to you. Here, have a hot dog. No, they're the kind of people, you nailed it. We get what we want and you stand in our way, we'll shoot you dead. I'm telling you, John, had you not given them those hot dogs, you would not be calling me today. I don't know. Agree, disagree? Final word to you, John.
100% agree. They had nothing to lose, and you can tell that they get away with murder out there. And, I mean, if we're talking hot dogs, stinking hot dogs, really? So if we had something that was really valuable on us, you know, they probably would have taken it one step further. So, I mean, God bless Trump for doing what he's got to do. And I wish it would have been sooner. You know, we would have really enjoyed that trip to D.C. But, you know, anyways, thanks.
John, you got a great attitude. John, my best to your family, everybody. And please, John, don't be a stranger. Call again. That is a really good story. And that sums it up there, right there in a nutshell. You want to know why Trump is taking control of the police department? You want to know why he's sending in the National Guard, federal troops? Here it is in a nutshell. They shoot you dead for a hot dog. Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, what's up,
Mark,
my man?
my friend, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm not going to have hot dogs anytime soon, but I'm doing really well. Holy crap.
But Mark, honestly, I swear, I know people that would not have given the hot dog. I'm serious. And I'm like, no, just give him the hot dog. But you're giving in to him. I know, but you get to live another day. Like, just give him the hot dog, man. And no lip, no just, okay, here it is. Just please get that Glock out of my face. Because that's how people end up dead. Seriously. Anyway, Mark, please go ahead.
They probably walked down the street and threw him in the trash because they didn't really want him anyways. They just wanted to take from the guy. But listen, you're 100% correct with this whole under-reporting thing. I was reading last night about it, and if the police union is leading the charge on this. They're the ones screaming from the mountaintop about what they're being told to do. You have police officers that walk the streets coming forward saying that if it's a carjacking with a firearm, they're told not to report the firearm. If it's an assault with a deadly weapon, they're told to leave out the weapon and just call it a theft. They're having them classify these things as felony assaults because the FBI doesn't track those as violent crimes. They're actively, the higher-ups are actively telling these guys they're going to report these things under a different classification because it helps the crime numbers. And that's what they've been doing for years now. So when they sit there, and they say, oh, it's, violent crime is down. Well, yeah, because you're leaving out the fact that there was a gun in the commission of the crime. You're leaving out the fact that it was, gang, related. I mean, that's what they've been doing. And yeah, it's pushing down the numbers, but it's horrible.
Mark, can you hang on? I'm up against a hard break, but I want to ask you this question, and to everybody out there. Why are they deliberately fudging the numbers? Why are they manipulating the statistics? Why not just have the police go arrest criminals, throw them in jail? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Mark in New Hampshire. Mark, you're completely right. They have been falsifying the statistics. They were caught falsifying the statistics. That's why they're claiming that the crime rate in D.C. is at a 30-year low. It's a bald-faced lie. And my question to you, and this is what I just can't wrap my mind around. She's got an army. 3,500 police officers. Holy mackerel, Mark. You could take out the Mexican drug cartels with 3,500 law enforcement officers. But they're basically told to stand down and to either not make arrests, or if they do make arrests, to just give them a slap on the wrist and put them back out on the street. Why don't they just do what has worked again and again? Have the police arrest the gangbangers, throw them in jail, throw the book at them, and this way you get crime down to, a reasonable level where people can walk the streets in security and safety. What are they so afraid of, Mark?
Thing. Jeff, so this is a two-part problem. The first one is for the last 25 years, they've been telling you that if you want to go into these cities and you want to arrest people, it's racist, Jeff. It's you just hate these kids in the cities. You just want to arrest them because of the color of their skin. And they have catered and pandered to the hard left, which doesn't want police. And they can't back away from that, otherwise they lose almost their entire base. The other part of this, Jeff, is power. Every good Democrat will do whatever it takes to get power, Jeff, and that's where that's the center of it all. Washington D.C. She loves being the mayor there. She loves the notoriety. She loves the power and the control, and she knows that if she starts to crack down on this, she's going to lose the support of the hard left, and that's going to affect her power and her control. And the Democrats up high are telling her, "Don't go after these inner city people." This is all just it's a cultural thing, Jeff. They need to be treated with respect, Jeff, and they need to be taught that it's okay to be out there committing these things because we understand what you've been going through. But it's all about power and control, and the fact that they've dug this massive hole that they can't get out of.
Mark, you're right. I think you've hit the nail on the head. But I just want to ask you a follow-up question. in the end, Muriel Bowser has to get reelected. And the overwhelming majority of the population, what is it, plus 90%, that are actual residents that live in D.C. I'm not talking about the lobbyists, the politicians, the staffers, they live in Virginia and Maryland. The journalists. I used to live in Northern Virginia for a while, then I lived in suburban Maryland. So you work in D.C., but you live in either Virginia or Maryland. I'm talking about the actual residents of D.C. They work there, they live there. Overwhelming, over 90%, it's black. They're African American. They're the ones who are the victims of all of this crime. So you're right. It's about power. It's about control. It's about the hard left. The claim that it's racist to arrest people and throw them in jail and hold them accountable for their actions. But don't the people of D.C., the victims, the law-abiding mothers and fathers and the children, the kids that go to school, and don't they want to have safe streets? Don't they want to have places where there's no drugs? Don't they want to have a place where they can, go grocery shopping and not get shot dead? Why do they keep electing the Marion Barrys and the Muriel Bowsers? Wouldn't they say, we've had enough, we want to change in leadership? What say you?
You would think that they would. Common sense would tell you that, this is not working. We need to go in a completely different direction. But they've been so beaten about the head with this whole race thing that if you don't toe that line, you're no better than Clarence Thomas. You're no better than, any African American that happens to vote right. Look no further than Harlem, Jeff. Harlem, the epicenter of everything that was African American during, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, Harlem, with these open drug clinics that they have, these people are shooting up, Jeff, and they're having sex on the side of the street. Openly, right on the side of the road in front of people's homes. And no one's doing anything about it. The people call and the police laugh at them. This is where they're at in these cities. You've got, Chicago, where you got rid of that clown and you brought in a worse clown. It's madness, Jeff. These people continue to vote these idiots into office. But, it is what it is. And unfortunately, they're going to continue to vote that way until it hits them personally. Until these criminals come forward and say, the reason I'm doing this is because of our mayor. Until someone hits them right in the face and says, this is why we're doing this. But until that happens, they're going to continue to vote for her, and they're going to continue to vote for these far-left people under the promise of, we're going to make it more affordable for everyone. We're going to have free this, free that. Just vote for us. Don't let those racist Republicans in, because they'll throw you in the concentration camps. That's all it is. It's just constant battering about their head about how bad the right is.
No, Mark, honestly, you absolutely hit the nail on the head. Mark, as always, thank you very much for that call. No, it's brainwashing. It's constant indoctrination. It becomes, it's cultural. It really is. It's sort of like, they're going to throw us in jail. If they throw us, that's racist. How dare you throw us in jail? Well, they're throwing you in jail because they're killing other citizens and residents, most of whom happen to be black. It's predominantly black. There is a lot of black on white crime, no question. But the overwhelming majority of the victims are black. So a lot of this is black on black crime. Hello? If someone shoots you, shoots your niece or whatever, don't you want that person to go to jail? Hello? Now, there's also the attitude towards law enforcement. Black Lives Matter. I think the riots of 2020, the George Floyd riots, were devastating to many of these communities. I think there's no question. Defunding the police has been devastating, but also the way the lack of esteem, the lack of authority that now the police wield, and the way they're seen as a bunch of Gestapo neo-Nazis. That's how the police are seen by the left, by these mayors, and by many of their constituents. And I want you to listen now to Trump, because he's completely right. where this just happened over the weekend. Believe it or not, there are parts of Washington, D.C. that are so bad with sort of youth crime, as they call it, gangs, these punks, these 14, 15, 16-year-old mobs, that the mayor has been forced, Bowser, to impose a curfew. Some, by the way, some as early as 7 in the evening. Okay, mostly it's 8 or 9 o'clock at night, but some even 7 in the evening because they're running wild. But they don't respect the law. And now it is fashionable to walk up to police officers and spit at them in the face. Spit in their face. And they know that they can do nothing. They will not be arrested. If there's a line of police officers to try to prevent a riot or to try to impose some kind of order, if there's some kind of a protest or whatever, they will walk up and puh. Trump says this is now over. It's not the mayor and it's not the D.C. City Council that's running the police. It's now going to be AG Pam Bondi. It's going to be the DOJ. It's going to be Trump. It's going to be the federal government. You spit at police officers' faces, Trump says you're going to get whacked. I've given the order. They go for your faces with the spitting, you club them, and then you arrest them. Roll cut 5, Mike.
Entire neighborhoods are now under emergency curfews. Just this past weekend, gunfire went through, and you saw that, the Navy Yard. I saw it this morning. They saw that they fought back against, they fight back until you knock the hell out of them, because it's the only language they understand. But they fought back against law enforcement last night. And they're not going to be fighting back long, because I've instructed them and told them whatever happens, they love to spit in the face of the police. As the police are standing up there in uniform, they're standing and they're screaming at them an inch away from their face, and then they start spitting in their face. And I said, you tell them, you spit and we hit, and they can hit real hard.
I'm with them. Honestly, I'm with them all the way. And by the way, that incident that he's talking about, and I think that was really, really the last straw that broke the camel's back. That was at the Navy Yard, where it was about 100 of these rampaging teenagers, gangbangers. They had guns, semi-automatics. I think one guy even had an Uzi. And it was some kind of gang warfare or turf war. And it was just literally boom, 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 boom. It's like you're in a war. It's like Ukraine. You're in a war zone. And so they called in the police because the residents are losing their minds. And by the way, violating the curfew. There's a curfew. They don't care. And there's gunfire everywhere. And they called in the police, and then these gangs turned their guns on the police. And so there was a shootout, like a war zone between the gangs and the police. And that's when Trump heard that, he said, that's it. I'm calling in the troops. Like, this is ridiculous. Well, I'm not going to turn the city into a shooting gallery. Listen now to Trump saying it started with the summer of 2020. The disrespect, the sheer hatred for the police, the vilification, the demonization of the police. And they spit on police routinely. They harass police. They assault police. And he said, now you spit at a police officer, you touch a police officer, you assault a police officer, they're going to hit you back and they're going to arrest you. Roll cut 5A, Mike.
It's a disgusting thing. I've watched that for years, for 3-4 years. I've watched them. The police are standing, and they're told, don't do anything under any such, so and you can see they want to get at it. And they're standing there, and people are spitting in their face, and they're not allowed to do anything. But now they are allowed to do whatever the hell they want.
So Trump now is going to take the gloves off, the shackles off, and that's why many in the Metropolitan Police Department are supporting Trump. They're happy that he's taking over, that the feds are taking over, because now they say we can execute search warrants, we can start putting these thugs in jail, and we can untie our hands and start going after the criminals and the gangbangers. So my question to you, do you support Trump federalizing the police department, surging National Guard troops, clearing out all of the homeless encampments that are all over the city of Washington? Is it about time? Or do you think this is massive overkill on the part of Trump? 617-266-6868. Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Joe, thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Bob.
Back in the 70s, in New Jersey, in Newark, New Jersey, my buddy of mine was a lieutenant in the National Guard, and they were sent into the riot area with weapons but no ammunition, and they were being fired upon from the rooftops, and they had to take cover. Now, are these guys going to be armed? Are they going to have ammunition? Are they going to be just carrying billy clubs? Any ideas?
You're talking about the National Guard troops, right?
Yes.
No, they're going to be carrying arms. They're going to be carrying bullets. Now, according to what Pete Hegseth is saying, they sort of like what they did in L.A., they're going to be there in a supplementary role with the police. So when the police are now going to be under strict orders from Trump, from Pam Bondi, but Bondi and Trump working together, clean out the gangs. Clean out the gangs, go to their areas, their homes, their neighborhoods, and they're just going to start making arrest after arrest. And if there is a shootout, and they're expecting a lot of shootouts, then you call in the National Guard to reinforce the police. In other words, we're coming in guns blazing, and we're going to take them out. Trump says it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks. He goes, you watch, give me 2 to 3 weeks, like what I did at the border, and you will see crime drop like a stone. But the drug dealers, the drug cartels, by the way, they're going to make it illegal for bands of youths to just roam the streets. They're just going to grab them and just arrest them. They're going to tell them, absolutely not. You're not going to walk the streets like you own the streets and think you can terrorize the population. So that's 3,500 police officers. They've been told by the mayor and the city council to sit on their hands. Trump is now saying you're going to get off your rear ends and you're going to be, this is aggressive policing, and the gangs, the criminals, the drug dealers, the murderers, the rapists, we're taking them all out. And if there is violence, if there are shootouts, that's what the National Guard is there for. The National Guard will be there to give extra military muscle to the police.
My next question. Hello?
Yep, go ahead, Bob.
He says he's going to clean out the tent encampments. And exactly where is he going to take them? To another city?
Well, what he's going to do is there is a lot of public housing available. So what he's saying is, no, they're going to be moved into proper public housing. He goes, we're not just going to let you set up a tent a mile away from the White House. And then, you're shooting up, literally, they're shooting up heroin, or they're naked or semi-naked, or, forgive me, defecating on the street. Like, no. So we're going to put you in public housing. If not, we're going to put you in Maryland. We're going to put you in Virginia, but you're not going to be in the District of Columbia anymore. And in other words, no, we're going to make homeless encampments illegal. You can't just, by the way, a lot of them are in the parks. That's why he had Doug Burgum yesterday, the Interior Secretary, because that falls under his purview. And Doug Burgum said, look, I have instructed the park police. You see a homeless encampment, take it down. If you get resistance, arrest them. Period. You need a place to stay. There's a lot of public housing. That's what our tax money is going to. You're going to get a home. You're going to get someplace to stay. So, but the idea now that you can just sleep in a park or sleep on the sidewalk or sleep at Union Station or sleep in front of the Capitol building or sleep in front of the White House, no, those days are over. Those days are absolutely over. So find them beds, get them in public housing, put them in homeless shelters. That's where they belong, not on the streets. So that's also going to happen, Bob. Now, the liberals are going nuts, but I'll tell you this, the residents, you interview the residents, and they're like, hallelujah. The squalor, how dirty it is, how filthy it is. You got to see the images, just the pictures of Washington, D.C. I mean, there's people walking around naked on the street. You know, Mark mentioned what's happening in Harlem. It's happening in D.C. It's true. They're shooting up with the needles and everything right there on the sidewalk. And then they're urinating, defecating. They're having sex openly, publicly. It's disgusting. I'm sorry. Where's your self-respect? A, to the people who are doing this, but to the mayor, to the city council, to the residents. This is your city. How can you live like this? Like, no, we're not going to. This is savagery. No, we're not going to allow this to happen in our city. We're not going to turn Washington, D.C. into Bogota or into, I don't know, take your pick, Mogadishu. We're not going to do that. This is going to be a civilized city again. Now, you watch, Bob, the transformation is going to be within a month or almost overnight. And then the question the residents are going to ask themselves, and they're going to have to ask of all of them, do you want to keep it like this, or do you want to return it to the way it was before? Well, if you want to keep it like the way it is under Trump, it's time to start voting for Republicans or MAGA Republicans. Because if you keep voting for the Democrats, you're going to be living in filth and in excrement and in drugs and in homeless encampments and in violence again. In other words, do you want the gangs to run your city? Or do you want a proper, ordered, civilized city? Ultimately, it's up to the residents. Look, I'm sorry. I'm a firm believer in this, Bob. You get what you vote for. Now, if the idiots in New York want to vote for Mamdani, don't come crying to me. If the idiots in Boston want to keep voting for Michelle Wu, don't come crying to me. If the idiots in Chicago want to keep voting for Brandon Johnson, don't come crying to me. So if they're going to vote for Muriel Bowser again after Trump has cleaned up the city, don't come crying to me. Seriously, that's your business. That's your problem. Don't ask me to ever bail you out again. Bob, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. No, what Trump is now exposing clearly is Democrat mismanagement, Democrat corruption, Democrat misrule. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. There were protests last night in opposition to Trump, fueled by the Democrats, fueled by the media. Again, they're claiming now this is the beginning of a Trump dictatorship. Forgive me, yesterday afternoon. I'm sorry, Sandy, you're right. These protests began yesterday afternoon. Trump made the announcement at about maybe noon. What was it, 11:30, noonish? He began to make his announcement that he was taking over now. The federal government was taking over through Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, which, by the way, is completely legal. There's a provision in the Home Rule Act exactly for this, taking over the Metropolitan Police Department. They will now answer to the feds. And on top of that, Trump said that's not enough. I am ordering about 800 National Guard troops to be now surged into the District of Columbia, in which they will be armed. They will have bullets. They're not going to be the lead. They're going to be backing up the police because of all the shootouts that have been taking place and the gang warfare. But he said, we're going to make sure now that security is a top priority. Immediately, it started from Hillary Clinton, through the media, through the DNC, through the mayor's office. It all was one after the other. This is the beginning of the dictatorship. Trump is now putting boots on the ground. He's now going to occupy D.C. He's going to occupy other cities. Eventually now, a la Adolf Hitler, he's going to impose a one-party, one-man dictatorship. He's now going to occupy the whole country. Yesterday, in the afternoon, I kid you not, the so-called Free D.C. protesters began singing that D.C. is our home. And to Trump, you can't have it. Roll cut 17B. Mike.
D.C. is our home. You can't have it, Trump. D.C. is our home. You can't have it, Trump. It's our home, so it's our home. So get on out.
Okay, number one, if it's your home, why don't you help clean up all the graffiti? Why don't you clean up all these homeless encampments? Why don't you pick up all the dirty needles that are everywhere? Forgive me, the excrement. I'm sorry, the crap. Why don't you clean it up, shovel it off the streets? Why don't you prevent these gangbangers from going around and assaulting and raping and mugging and shooting and killing people? If you want, I can show you videos. There's not a CVS or a Walgreens that they don't come in and just literally just clean the place out. The businesses, they're looting them. They're just looting them. So if you care, if it's our home, then why don't you treat it like a respectable home? But I swear to you, okay, you couldn't make this up. As they were singing in protest against Trump's decision to crack down on crime, right nearby in Logan Circle, just a couple of blocks away, okay, in Logan Circle, as they're singing, a person was shot and killed. Shot and killed. And this is in the day. Just, boom. That's it. I don't like the way you look. Boom. Right in the face. Bye. You're dead. This is life in D.C. So these idiots are like, D.C.'s our home. D.C. is our home. And then 2 blocks down, bang. For no reason. Literally, for no reason. Someone is shot dead. And, boom. Now, you know what that is? You're walking in the middle of the city, and you see some guy get his head blown off, and the body's just on the ground, and blood is oozing out. And this is in the middle of the day? And this is supposed to be the capital of the United States? No, this is not the Donbass. No, this is not, I was going to say the Congo, but Trump made peace between Rwanda and the Congo. The problem now I have is I can't even draw analogies to war zones because he keeps making peace. So anyway, let's just stick to Ukraine then, or Gaza. No, this is not Gaza, and this is not Donetsk. This is Washington, D.C. Now, this is the part that's going to blow your mind. Listen now to Jeanine Pirro. You want to see how soft on crime. I mean, this is criminal. The D.C. City Council and that joke of a mayor are. Listen now to this. Roll cut 15. Mike.
I see too much violent crime being committed by young punks who think that they can get together in gangs and crews and beat the hell out of you or anyone else. They don't care where they are. They can be in DuPont Circle, but they know that we can't touch them. Why? Because the laws are weak. I can't touch you if you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old and you have a gun. I convict someone of shooting another person with an illegal gun on a public bus in the chest, intent to kill. I convict him. And you know what the judge gives him? Probation. Says you should go to college.
Okay? That's not an exaggeration. On a bus, you're 16 years old, you have an illegal gun with the intent, you admit it, yeah, I want to shoot him. That was my intention. It's not even an accidental shooting, no. Walk up to him, boom, right in the chest, I kill him. And the judge, because of the soft on crime laws, says, oh, no, you're not going to touch this guy. He's going to do hard time. He's never going to do hard time. No, what are you talking about? Yoga, I'm telling you, yoga, and arts and crafts. And no, he's going to go on. He's going to be a brain surgeon. No, we got to get him ready for college. No, he's going to get his high school degree. And then we release him after a year or two and he's back on the streets. If, in some cases, not even anything. It's just literally, they just let him out. Let him out. And no cash bail. No cash bail. In other words, there are no consequences. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, the text line is on fire. And many of you are just absolutely killing it. So this is from 781. Jeff, let me get this straight. A D.C. police bureaucrat faked the crime statistics for Washington, D.C. In other words, he lied. And then the legacy media doubled down on reporting, quote unquote, falling crime rates in D.C. to undermine President Trump based on lies yet again. Yeah. Why are we listening to anything the media says ever? You're completely right. You're completely right. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. This is from 508. Jeff, analysts on MSNBC, or as you like to say, MS Left BC, say that Trump is trying to bring down DC's crime rate because he's a racist. This is how broken Democrat ideas are. They'd rather have more black people die than have peace and order in D.C. under Trump. Yep. And here's one more, 917. Jeff, I'm listening to your show, and I'm sitting here absolutely stunned. And I'm frankly one of the most cynical guys in the universe. That the Democrats have decided to dig in on the position that it is bad for Trump to stop crime in Washington, D.C., because stopping crime is fascism. And Washington, D.C. doesn't have a crime problem anyway. I'm telling you, they're insane. They're absolutely insane. If he came out with a cure for cancer, you know what they'd say? Oh, look at all the people now that have lost their jobs. Look at all the cancer researchers, the people that do chemotherapy. My God, people are going to get laid off because of what he did. That's what I'm telling you. That's what they would say. All right, very quickly, listen to Jeanine Pirro. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. She now said, this was yesterday's press conference, with Trump, maybe 5 feet away from her, said, we're not just going to bring the D.C. police under federal control. We're bringing the city council, this hard left, pro-criminal D.C. city council, we're going to bring him to heel because their absurd laws favoring criminals and against victims are now over. Roll cut 15A, Mike.
We need to go after the D.C. Council and their absurd laws. We need to get rid of this concept of, no cash bail. We need to recognize that the people who matter are the law-abiding citizens, and it starts today.
Yes. Finally, put the law-abiding citizens and the victims first. It's about time. Now, one more, and then I'm going to go to the phone lines. By the way, she sent a message to all these punks. The days of all of you having legal immunity, the days of all of you being coddled and committing crime after crime, murder after murder, mugging after murder, mugging after mugging with impunity, those days are over. No more yoga and arts and crafts for you. Roll cut 16. Mike.
My final note is this. These kids understand that the jurisdiction is through the state attorney general, Brian Schwab. I did a poster of the young man from Doge who was beaten bloody with a severe concussion, a broken nose. And then I did a poster of what happens to those kids, because I can't arrest them, I can't prosecute them. They go to family court, and they get to do yoga and arts and crafts. Enough. It changes today.
Amen, sister. Amen. JC in Melrose. Thanks for holding, JC, and welcome.
Hello.
JC, go ahead.
Hi. Well, I am a three-time voter for President Trump, and I'm thrilled he's commander-in-chief. My heart is for the blue, and I know President Trump will train them well. And to all out there, America is our home. You can't have it your way. How about that?
JC, let me ask you, tell me what you think of this. Liberals are saying that Trump is now picking on 15, 16-year-old kids. That's what they call them. That these are minors, that now they're going to be tried as adults, that this is cruel, this is barbaric, that how Trump is now going after these young offenders is something that we shouldn't in a civilized society do, that these are young people who need our understanding, our help. They need to be rehabilitated. They need to be given job training. They need to be learn arts and crafts. They need to understand that they come from bad homes, and that sending them to do hard time is the wrong thing to do. My answer to them is, if they can do adult crimes, then they should be charged as adult criminals. You want to go around shooting people dead. You want to go around dealing drugs, carjacking, mugging, beating, assaulting people, then I'm sorry. You're going to do hard time. So if you don't want to do the crime, if you don't want to do the time, don't do the crime. Am I wrong, JC?
Not at all. I believe that it's different the past 10 years, and the young is so different now, and they allowed so much to be taken out of stores. They were allowing so much the past 4 years. But Judge Jeanine Pirro couldn't be the best to be in D.C. I am so happy for her, and I'm happy for America right now.
Look, I think revitalizing D.C. is going to be huge. And my prediction, JC, what Trump is doing in Washington, it's going to spread to other cities, Boston, New York, Chicago, L.A. I think the country's going to look at this as a model and say, if they can do it in D.C., why can't they do it in our neck of the woods? JC, thank you so much for that call. Alan in the great state of South Carolina. Thanks for holding, Alan, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. It's been ages. How you been?
Very good. How are you, Alan?
No, never a dull moment.
Alan, what do you make of this? He's a dictator. He's a fascist. That he's taking over cities. He's a new Julius Caesar. because he wants to put National Guard troops on the streets and get the police federalized so they can start cracking down on criminals and gangbangers. What say you?
Well, is my history correct in the sense that D.C. was created to be a federal district and it was carved out to be independent from the states, and that it only became kind of given the autonomy a little bit, like with a mayor?
Yes. Yes. Okay, Democrats and the left now on the warpath. Why? Because Trump is deciding to clean up crime in the District of Columbia. He now has ordered that the police department be federalized, at least temporarily, and that about 800 National Guard troops now be surged into the city, boots on the ground. Combined, he says they're going after the gangbangers, the drug dealers, the criminals. They're also going to clean out the homeless encampments. He says, give me 3 weeks, and D.C. will be a brand new city. Alan, you were making a very good point about the history of Washington, D.C., that it started off under federal control, and throughout much of its history, it has been under federal control. Please pick up where you left off, Alan.
I just think that it needs to go back. Like a lot of things in this country need to go back to the way they were, because things worked before the liberals got their hands on everything. And I think that the liberals have been pushing since the early 70s to make D.C., give D.C. statehood. And so all these moves to this point, as far as giving them some autonomy, giving them a mayor, city council, all that stuff, was a push in that direction. And it needs to go back to the original founding concept, which is it's an independent, it's a federal district, the seat of government for this country, and it needs to be not a state. It needs to be federalized so that way, it serves its purpose.
Well, Alan, just so that people know, Washington, D.C., almost from its inception, has had a mayor. It's not special that it has a mayor. What has changed is, and now sometimes it didn't have a mayor. I'll just give you an example. Like after the Civil War, in 1871, there were some riots. Things got really ugly in Washington, D.C. And so, the feds just completely took it over. It was just a complete takeover of the city. But no, they've had mayors, but always under federal supervision, federal purview, federal control, federal regulation, federal oversight. What has changed, you're right, is that in the last 40 to 50 years, there has been a push for so-called home rule. In other words, no, we want to have all the powers of law enforcement, all the powers of police. We want to be a full-fledged local jurisdiction, the way Boston is, or New York, or any other major city, with the city council and making all of these decisions. And look, the fact of the matter is, it's been a disaster. Home rule, objectively, it has been an absolute disaster. And I don't care if it's Marion Barry, I don't care if it's Muriel Bowser, I don't care who it is. We're talking about mayors who were crack addicts, literally crack addicts. Mayors who were convicted of either doing cocaine or trafficking cocaine. We're talking about levels of corruption and bribery that, frankly, you only see in places like in Africa or Latin America or Eastern Europe. It is unbelievably corrupt, unbelievably mismanaged. Look, I remember when I was at the Washington Times, I was coming in from Maryland. I'll never forget this. There was a snowstorm. And Maryland had plowed the roads, obviously. Virginia, on the other side, they had plowed their roads. Washington, D.C., there were no snowplows. Like, literally, there were no snowplows. So you're driving, and people don't know where the Times is, but it's right on the tip of Northeast D.C. So as I'm driving in on the 3, on the Maryland 3, I literally see my newspaper to my left. I'm still in Maryland. And all of a sudden I look in front of me and I jam my brakes because there's like 3 feet of snow. It's the highway was clean until you hit Washington, D.C. And then you, boom, the car plowed, it plowed into snow. Wasn't serious. I didn't get hurt. But it's like, you're like, oh my God, they didn't clean the snow. And then your car has somehow got to maneuver through 2-3 feet of snow, and you make your way into the parking lot. Yeah, that's right. You're right, Sandy. Unless you lived on the Mayor's Street, because that was the only street that was plowed. That's how third worldish it was. The Mayor's Street was plowed. No other street was plowed. And you say to yourself, come on, I mean, this is the United States of America. Every street should be plowed in a snowstorm. But this is the nation's capital on top of it. And they can't even plow the freaking streets? Well, that's when they took in federal control. And they had to take, and slowly give it back. And now they've given a lot back, and look, it's a mess. So, look, Alan, nobody wants to say it. I'm going to say it. The Democrats are not competent enough to run the city of Washington, D.C. Period. Full stop. That's it. There's nothing else to say. So the only time the city runs well is when the federal government runs it. So let's have the federal government permanently, not temporarily, permanently run it. And look, here's my prediction. You can hold me to this. This is going to work. Because I know it's going to work because every time it's been tried, it works. You put more police on the street. You tell them to start arresting the bad guys. You start throwing the book at them. In other words, real consequences, real fines, real penalties, real punishment, real prison terms. Crime's going to go way down. Giuliani did it in New York. I can give you example after example. And then when Trump leaves office or they stop, it's going to go back to what it was now. That's what's going to happen. Just the way like New York has now descended into a hellhole. And, you talk to New Yorkers, and this is what I find amazing. Didn't you like it under Giuliani? Yeah. I mean, didn't you love having clean streets and safe parks and good schools and police presence everywhere? And, I mean, the city was booming. It was economically doing extremely well. You could walk your kids at night. Didn't you like that? Yeah. So why don't you vote for it? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Now they're going to vote in Zoran Mamdani. He's going to defund the police. He's got no cash bail, defund the police, abolish prisons. It's going to be freaking anarchy in 6 months. It's going to be the Wild West. So this is going to work under Trump until the Democrats take over, and you're going to have the city run itself again, and it's going to be a disaster. It's like a cycle. It's like a cycle. It's like a drug addict. You go to rehab, life is great. Then he goes back to the drugs, life sucks. And you're like, didn't you like it better when you're under rehab? Yeah. So why do you go back to the drugs? I don't know. And that's going to, I'm telling you, that's going to be Washington, D.C. To me, federalize it permanently, get it over with. But that's me. Final word to you, Alan.
Well, you're right about New York. That's going to become Gotham pretty soon. No, school just started up here a couple of weeks ago, and there's already a flyer out there for my son's middle school having a trip to D.C., and I was like, hell no, until this news came out. Now maybe. I'm going to go to the information session next week and see what their plan is. But, I mean, we were there in 2021 as a family, and we stayed, you mentioned kind of where the State Department is. We were at a hotel right near the State Department. And there's a triangle park that's right there. And you could not walk through that park. It was all tents in 2021. I took my life in my hands. I couldn't believe I did this. Looking back on it, it's like crazy that I did this. I walked from basically the State Department all the way over to Union Station area to go to a coffee shop. I mean, it was a coffee shop I've always wanted to visit called Ebenezer's, and wanted to get over there. I walked it. I just for an afternoon stroll through the city, and I hadn't been to D.C. in years, since I was a kid, and looking back on it, it was probably a pretty stupid thing to do, but I survived. But I think it's only gotten worse, and there's no way I was going to let my kid go there on a school trip, with minimal supervision, obviously.
Alan, when is that school trip scheduled to depart?
Don't know. They're just having the information session. Like, literally, school just started. It's probably going to be, I'm guessing, in the spring. They're just getting the
of next
word
year.
out there, and I'm thinking that they'll probably do it in the spring.
Oh, Alan, look, if you were going to say to me the next couple of weeks or whatever, I'd say it's up to you. You're the parent. You decide, obviously. I'd be like, Alan, my advice is no. Don't do it. It's too dangerous. It'll get better, but it's still too dangerous. I think by the spring, it's going to be all cleaned up. I mean, well, you're going to have, there's going to be National Guard everywhere. 3,500 police. Alan, that's the number I can't wrap my mind around. That's an army. That's an army. I mean, you could have cops on every corner. You could have cops everywhere. Especially if you empower them to make arrests and, really arrest people and with the force of law behind it. In other words, it's not just, hey, a revolving door. You arrest them and they come out within 2 hours. If you really, say, no, you're going to arrest somebody and they're going to really be charged and they're looking at real time, real consequences. Oh my God, you'd have a zero crime rate with that many police officers. So if you're talking about spring of next year, I think Trump will have the problem cleaned up by then. Obviously, it's your decision, but I'm just, giving my honest advice. So yeah, next spring, it should be under control. No, to me, it's just, it's embarrassing that you need the federal government to do what these clowns on the city council and the mayor should be doing. That's one of your basic responsibilities outside of filling the potholes is keeping the streets safe. And there's a massive budget that they have. Plus, you have all the assets of the federal government. It's not just the National Guard at your disposal. You've got DEA, FBI, the Park Service, U.S. Marshals. You could go on and on. Like, the one city in America that should be super safe is Washington, D.C. It's crawling with law enforcement. It's like, how do you wreck that? They did it, Alan. They did it. Whatever the Democrats touch, they destroy. Alan, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Here, look, don't take my word for it. It is so bad. Listen to this. Even an anchor on ABC, okay, who lives in Washington, D.C. So the media, they're all like, oh, they're on this. It's a 30-year crime rate. It's a 30-year low. The crime rate's a 30-year low. How is he doing this? Even she couldn't keep the narrative straight because of what she experienced and the people that work with her. So listen now to this. She's an anchor on ABC, Kyra Phillips, and she blows up the whole narrative that D.C. crime numbers are at a 30-year low because she starts telling her audience, well, just in the last couple of months, let me tell you what we've all experienced here at ABC. Roll cut 22. Mike.
We've been talking so much about the numbers, and yeah, usually that's how you play devil's advocate, is you talk about, oh, well, stats say crime is down. However, I can tell you firsthand here in downtown D.C. where we work, right here around our bureau, just in the past 6 months, there were 2 people shot. 1 person died, literally 2 blocks down here from the bureau. It was within the last 2 years that I actually was jumped walking just 2 blocks down from here. And then just this morning, one of my coworkers said her car was stolen a block away from the bureau. So we can talk about the numbers going down, but crime is happening every single day because we're all experiencing it firsthand while working and living down here.
Now, that's why I'm telling you deep down, even many of the journalists know that Trump is right. I mean, they're pushing the Democratic line and the narrative. It's a lie about this 30-year low. It's a complete lie. And they know it's a lie. Because they're getting mugged as well. Their cars are getting stolen as well. They're lucky they've had such harrowing experiences. They're like, I'm lucky I'm alive today. So even they know that Trump is right on this. Now, one more cut because I want to go to the phone lines. Listen now to Karen Bass. Okay, you want to talk about another moonbat mayor, a disaster of a mayor. She has run L.A. into the ground. She has bungled everything. All she's doing is declaring war on ICE. Her city is economically on its back. Crime, illegal immigration, murder, homicide, rioting, it's all out of control. If it wasn't for the National Guard troops, the federal troops that Trump sent in, LA would be burning. Listen now to this line of attack. Here it is. Trump, the dictator. Roll cut 18, a mic.
When we have over 200 countries here, meaning heads of state of over 200 countries, of course you have the military involved. That is routine. But that is not the military driving up and down the streets of the city like, unfortunately, the Marines did. You remember, we didn't just have 4,000 National Guard members. We also had I think it was about 700 U.S. Marines. Completely inappropriate, a political stunt. And that was not needed. And I believed then and I believe now that Los Angeles was a test case. And I think D.C. is a test case as well for the president to say, well, we can take over your city whenever we want, and I'm the commander-in-chief, and I can use the troops whenever we want. I think that is an abuse of our troops, and I think it's an overreach of presidential powers for the president to literally take over law enforcement in a city that has not requested the help.
It's not an overreach of her powers to declare L.A. a sanctuary city, which is illegal. It's not an overreach of her powers to literally allow the drug cartels to run wild in her city. It's not an overreach on her part when she allows illegals on motorcycles doing donuts, flying the Mexican flag, as they are torching, burning, looting, assaulting police officers, burning cars, looting businesses, and basically saying that they want an insurrection and impeding law enforcement from deporting criminal illegal aliens. No, then that's okay. Then Karen Bass can do whatever she wants. But when Donald Trump says, we're going to send in the troops because you guys can't keep basic law and order, and I'm not going to allow Los Angeles to go up in flames, to go up in smoke. I'm not going to allow it. Suddenly now it's a test case. It's a test case. This is a dictatorship. Now, how long are you going to go on with this? You know, there's a certain point, either he's Hitler or he's not Hitler. Now, you said he was Hitler in the first term. Well, that didn't, you lied. Then you said he would become Hitler once he got elected. Well, that hasn't happened. Then you said he was going to be Hitler once he was inaugurated. Well, that hasn't happened. Now we're 6 months, 7 months into his presidency. When is he going to become Hitler? Can you explain this to me? Like, this Hitler routine is getting really old really fast. So anything he does, everything he does, Hitler. He burps, Hitler. He opens his eyes, Hitler. He says good morning, Hitler. Remember, Hitler said good morning as well. So there it is. There it is. Hitler said good morning. He just said good morning. To sustain this kind of hysteria and panic porn, A, it's exhausting, and B, you have no credibility after a while. They're not crying wolf 3 times. They're crying wolf now 1,000,000 times. And they'd rather, think about what they're telling us now. We want murderers, gangbangers, drug dealers, rapists, and muggers to occupy the streets of Washington, D.C. or any city because we don't want Trump to fight crime. It is now fascist to fight crime. You're now a dictator if you want to stop crime. This is what I mean when I say you're watching the suicide of the Democratic Party. They keep going further and further and further and further to the left. And pretty soon, it's not going to be an 80-20 issue. As Trump said yesterday, it's going to be 97-3. So, okay, guys, if you want to keep digging your own political grave, go ahead. I don't know what else to tell you. Dan in Dartmouth. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Dan.
Jeff, I have 3 points.
Yes, go ahead.
So, I have to say that some people aren't going to like it. And you mentioned it the other day, the drill music, but this goes back to gangster rap music. These kids are listening to this the time they're a baby. And it's all they hear all day long. And that message, it's got to be brainwashing day in and day out, besides all the other stuff. This gangster rap music, it's violent music. And everything about it, it isn't necessarily looking at, the beauty of life. It is everything that is, against society, against the cops, against women, calling them hoes, against themselves, calls the N-word. And you can't say it, but, like the girl in Cincinnati with the couple, they said that she said it. And that's what that as well. And this just goes.
Dan, please don't think we're cutting you off. Far from it. Dan in Dartmouth, please pick up where you left off, Dan. You were saying you look at this gangster rap music. It is vile. It is evil in many ways. It dehumanizes women. It promotes cop killing, murder. It calls for, it degrades blacks by using the N-word repeatedly. That this is a poison on segments of the black community and that we should be speaking out against it. Please, Dan, pick up where you left off.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, and that was a good summary. That's basically everything I said. And then on top of that, it also celebrates drug use as well. And this is one of these. It's almost like it is for them. It's like they don't understand what's in the Bible, in the gospel. This is really their gospel ringing in their ears continuously. And so they have a warped sense of reality. And you have to go back to the people like putting this music together, promoting the music, putting it out on the radio or CDs or on the internet. It's got to go back to them as well. And you got to follow the money. And in my opinion, this is something that needs to be taxed. So the amount of money that they make isn't worth it because it's leading to nothing good in this society. It's a breakdown of society. And you can do all the other things, but that music's still in the background. Unless that music is taken care of in a way that it has to go way underground. And I'm not sure how to actually do that. It's a psychological play. It should have been done minutes ago. I've been talking about this for like 30 years. This is something that is, again, it needs to be addressed. Secondly, second point, ever since, and you brought this up as well, George Floyd, that just brought on a whole nother level of, uncivilized behavior that's acceptable in so many cities because they wanted to do this against Trump, but they're bringing down society as well. And this all goes back, Jeff, to George Soros and these DAs and all of the hierarchy that they put in place to allow this to happen, to let them back out on the streets, not prosecuting him. And I think they've got to go after George Soros as well. Throughout this process, they got to bring that organization down because it's doing nothing that's going to get out of the situation that we're in. and we're in a deep hole right now. And George Soros has a lot to do with it. And I just want to get your feedback on that.
Oh, you're on all 3 points. You're 1,000% correct. To me, George Soros is a national security threat to the United States. I can't think of another man, that includes Obama, by the way, that has done more damage to this country than George Soros. Really. I mean, everything that is evil, bad, destructive, that is anti-American, he funds and supports. And he's made it very clear. He said it openly. His job is to bring America to its knees. And that's one of the reasons why he's aggressively supported and given money, funded these progressive district attorneys who are, forget soft on crime, they're pro-criminal. That's what they are. And look, you don't need to be a rocket scientist. If you keep pushing policies, and it's not just Washington, D.C., it's New York, it's Boston, it's Chicago, it's L.A., it's San Francisco, it's Atlanta, which is really bad, Milwaukee as well, many places, no cash bail. So literally you go out and shoot somebody and you're out on the street in 2 hours. So you push no cash bail, defund the police. Think about this. Defund the police. Allow shoplifting and other crimes, make it basically decriminalize it for up to $1,000. And then deliberately impose light sentences, if not no sentences whatsoever, just probation, for some of the worst, most vile, violent crimes. Well, what do you think is going to happen? If you encourage crime, you're going to get more of it. If you appease crime, you're going to get more of it. If you refuse to punish crime, you're going to get more of it. And that's exactly what's happening. So what you're seeing now, not just on the crime front, but on the illegal immigration front, look, the Democrats have made it clear. You can be a murderer, a rapist, a human trafficker, a drug trafficker. We don't want you deported, period. You're going to stay in the United States. So what they are is they're pro-rape. That's what they are. They're pro-murder, pro-rape, pro-gangbanger, pro-criminal. Now, outside of the freaking Bolsheviks, who were full of criminals, that's about it. And anarchists. That's about it. No other political persuasion is pro-criminal. That's how insane and extreme they've become. And then, to get to your point about a gangster rap or what they call drill music, okay, very similar. It is pro-death. I've never heard music like this. It is pro-death. It glorifies murder. It says you're not a man if you don't murder somebody. And at the top of the food chain is a police officer. So it's a music that calls police officers pigs, and says that, you know what, you really want to strike a blow against oppression? Kill a cop. Kill a cop. Now, that came from George Floyd. That came from Black Lives Matter. I said it at the time, and I'll say it now. Black Lives Matter is a domestic terrorist organization. It is a domestic hate group. And it was under George Floyd that they delegitimized, the left embraced and supported looting, rioting, burning, including the murder and maiming of police officers and innocent civilians. There is a 4-year-old black girl in Atlanta that was killed by a Black Lives Matter thug. Nothing happened to him. Okay? They burned down a Wendy's. Nothing happened. They shot a police officer and blinded him. Nothing happened. All of this cheered on by the Democrats, the media, and Black Lives Matter. That's why we are where we are now. And I got to say this, okay? And this needs to be said. I don't care how people get offended over this. Name me one other ethnic or racial group. Take your pick. Puerto Ricans, what do you want? Cubans, Irish, Italians, Chinese, that use the equivalent of the N-word 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just to put an exclamation point on what I was saying before the break, look, it's a free country. You can call people whatever you want to call them. You can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. If this is the kind of music you want to listen to, I think they should be shamed. I think they should be told that this kind of gangster rap is not cool. I wish more people in the black community in particular, pastors, religious leaders, faith leaders, community leaders, would speak out against it. And, say, you may think it's cool. It's not cool. But, at a bare minimum, you tell me this use of the N-word, and it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous, as they say. It's all it's just N. The whole damn song is N. Okay? Usually effing N. And you're right. Women are, referred to as hoes and bitches. And I'm like, what kind of music is this? This is so degrading and so dehumanizing. And why would you call one another the N-word? And so, as I've said, I go, tell me if I'm wrong. I pick your racial group, pick your ethnic group. I don't care. Pick them. Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Mexicans, Irish, Italian, Polish, Chinese, Japanese. I just go on. I mean, just pick them. They don't use racial slurs in their music, and they don't use racial slurs against one another, i.e. of the same group. I've never heard of this. And then the answer is, when you confront them, among these young kids, they go, well, we're appropriating the word, from the slaveholders. I'm like, no, you're not. You're just perpetuating their insults. That's all you're doing. That's all it is. So they called you the N-word. Now you guys call each other the N-word? Like, you don't see the problem here? So, to me, it's a disgrace. One of the things I hoped for, that ship sailed a long time ago, but just to show you how naive I can be sometimes, when Obama was elected president, I said, well, if we're going to have a socialist, at least let's break that glass ceiling. This is what I thought at the time. And hopefully Obama could then use his presidency and say to the black community, hey, look, don't say anymore that the deck is stacked against us. Don't claim anymore that you're being held back. If a black man can become president of the United States, a black person can do anything. But I thought, at least that issue would be settled, that the race card would come to an end. No, it got worse. It got infinitely worse, because all this guy ever did was play the race card. But then I thought, okay, but at least at a bare minimum, that their leader would say, using his bully pulpit, let's not use the N-word amongst ourselves. It's a disgusting, vile racial slur. It shouldn't be in our music. It shouldn't be in rap or gangster rap, and we shouldn't use that word when we talk to one another. Instead, nothing. In fact, what did he do? He partied with Jay-Z and Beyonce. Jay-Z in particular is one of the biggest producers of this kind of garbage. He makes, not tens, hundreds of millions of dollars peddling this poison in the black community. All he does is make money and promote rappers and gangster rap and drill music and the most vile lyrics imaginable. And there was the dear leader boogieing with Jay-Z, partying with P. Diddy. I'm sorry, it's disgraceful. You want to call me a racist? I don't care. What? So you shouldn't use the N-word amongst yourselves? You're going to call me a racist for that? Do you know how stupid that is? 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Roman in Boston. Thanks for holding, Roman, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Roman?
I'm good. Actually, Jeff, I am ecstatic about the federalization of the D.C. police. I've been on the job for 30 years, and I've seen the trend as to what happened after 2020 and the police hate. Now you could just flip through, online and see that cops getting killed every day. Every day we're getting killed wholesale. When before the cop got killed and it was a national tragedy. That's how watered down our job has become, and there's many factors that happened. That George Floyd was the catalyst. Obama definitely did not help. He was the worst thing that ever happened to this country. I'm surprised that, even from when I was young, I was surprised that D.C. was never a federal entity, Washington, D.C., that they had their own mayor. And it always amazed me because they've had a series of bad mayors, Marion Barry, Muriel Bowser, all of it, and all the bad that comes along with it. I am so happy because guess what, Jeff? Cops want to be cops again. They want to do their job. And they want to, contrary to what the left believes, that we're all racist and fascist, something that is old. That's real old. Call me whatever you want because I know it's not true. We're murderers and all this stuff. That's all garbage. And I really am excited about, why don't they, for that shootout, why don't they send a bunch of social workers down there to help them out, Jeff? You know what I mean? That's what they really want. That's what Mamdani wants. See how that works out for you. But I am ecstatic about the federal government taking over the D.C. police. And I think they're finally going to do something. And isn't it funny? They're like Minutemen. As soon as Trump says he's going to do something, like Minutemen, they come from everywhere to protest. You know what I mean? Do these people even live in D.C.? Probably not. There's about 3 or 4 states that surround D.C. that you can hit D.C. in 2 hours and get there. They just whip up these protests immediately. I find that amazing. And that's all I wanted to say, Jeff.
Well, no, Roman, just to reinforce, piggyback off of what you're saying, these protesters were all wearing the same shirts, the same anti-Trump shirts, and they're all on the same point, on the same message, all with the same talking points. So it's obvious they were paid. These are Soros's people, and they went out there to stir up trouble. So there's no question this was all coordinated. No, and I think the big fear is not just that he's going to fix D.C., and he will, because you're right, he's going to let cops be cops again. And when cops are cops, they arrest the bad guys, they put them in jail, and the streets become much safer. And you need law enforcement because without law enforcement, you can't have law and order. And once the residents of D.C. see and feel and touch and live what it's like to live in a truly safe city with real law and order, they're not going to want to go back. Or at least, the sane ones are not going to want to go back. But the real danger is what Trump said yesterday about New York and Chicago and L.A., and I'm telling you, he's also mentioning Boston, saying this is going to work in D.C. And when it works in D.C., I'm going to go, as he put it, I'm paraphrasing him now, I'm going to go to the mayor of New York and I'm going to say, why don't you want to do it in your own city? Or Chicago, why don't you want to do it in your own city? And if you guys don't give me a good answer, I'm going to send the National Guard troops into your city. In other words, I'm not going to allow this carnage to continue. If you're not going to do your jobs as mayor to protect the people, the law-abiding citizens of your city, okay, my friends, this is becoming a scandal. I'm telling you, you can see it. It is becoming a massive media scandal. The way they keep repeating this lie that the crime rate is at a 30-year low in Washington, D.C., they're lying, and they know that they're lying. Listen now to this. This is from 917. You can text the Kuhner man 70470. Jeff, the source of all of the claims that crime is down in D.C. is the D.C. Metro Police Department, which it is now coming out is led by a far-left DEI advocate who had to suspend a police commander, which you mentioned earlier, for falsifying and altering crime statistics. So, yeah, you can decide whether to trust those numbers or not. No, look, they falsified the statistics. It's now coming out. The media knows that they falsified these statistics. Again, it's like the Russia collusion hoax. They knew they were lying about Trump. They knew they were framing him as an agent of Madrasha. And they went with it anyway. Now, to go after Trump again, they're lying about it's a 30-year low. No, it isn't. And it's all coming from the Metropolitan Police Department, who now are embroiled in a scandal. That's why one of their commanders had to be suspended, because, as I like to say, he's cooking the books. They were artificially changing crime numbers to make crime seem better in D.C. than what it really is. You can't make this up. CJ in Revere Beach. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
Problem here in Boston, if you remember, the Suffolk district attorney she removed 15 to 16 chargeable offenses, whereas if you keep the numbers low, then of course these people are not getting arrested, then the numbers come up low. But in order to resolve any issue or problem, you first have to identify it. And we have to face the facts that at 13% of the population of the United States, Black America accounts for the majority of violent crime in America. They account for 80% of the violent crime in D.C. against other blacks. And a lot of prominent blacks have spoken about this, about the reasons behind this. And one of the main reasons is that the majority of these young black children grow up in a one-parent family, usually their mother or their grandmother or their grandfather. So what they do is they turn to the streets for recognition, for identity. And so when they're asked if they want a job cleaning the toilets at McDonald's or making $150 for the afternoon selling crack on the street corner, the choice becomes clear. We have to recognize what this problem is. What they need to do in D.C. is to federally charge these people who are carjacking. That is a federal crime, punishable up to 10 years in jail. They have to make murder a national crime, not a local crime. And they have to let these people know you commit these crimes, you're not going to go to some sweet prison in the United States of America. We're going to ship your ass to El Salvador, and they'll contend with you there. We have to recognize what the problem is and what these young black gangbangers have become for the Democratic Communist Party. They have become their brown shirts. These young blacks are the Al-Qaedas and the Hamases of the United States of America, bringing terror to our cities, mostly Democratic cities who tolerate this. They have poisoned the court system. They have put district attorneys, lenient district attorneys, who do not want to prosecute these people for the crimes that they have committed. They want to just increase the amount of crime, the tension in the United States. That is what they want to do. They want to tear this country apart. And we will not, black, white, red, or yellow, we will not let this happen. And I can tell you right now, I'm not in D.C., but I can tell you those honest, hardworking blacks in D.C. right now are cheering on the president. They want these people off their street. They want them they want to be able not to double lock their doors at night or keep their kids in the house after the sun goes down. We don't live in a third world country, and we should be governed as we do not live in a third world country. We live in the best country in the world, and Donald Trump is going to show that. And in the next 3 years, you're going to see J.D. Vance continue that, and hopefully 4 years after that, you're going to see Ron DeSantis continue that. And that is my hope, is that I may not live long enough to see it, but I hope to see a Republican in the White House for the rest of my life, Jeff. And just let me say this. There is one thing that tore the United States of America down, tore this country in pieces, is when the Supreme Court said that you have the freedom and the right to burn the American flag.
Oh, that's a great point. CJ, honestly, it's a great way to end the show. You're right. They devalued patriotism and the love of our country. There's no question. But look, on crime, Trump has the majority, the overwhelming majority of the American people and the overwhelming majority of the residents of D.C.